In this real-side experience, I would have an encounter, albeit briefly, with my deceased grandmother, who was my father's mother. We are all these beings of light now, in these real universes that require recognition to assume. But in the meantime, we create our funny little creational vehicles, the personal self, and we construct its consciousness as we make our choices and decisions. The ideas, attachments, agreements that it comprises of, as we constantly build upon it from lifetime to lifetime. The variety of roles we can assume each lifetime are unlimited, really, just a case of what we decide, dictating our position and role, and as it relates to other individuals. It is emotional attachment with individuals that constantly have them feature in our experience and lifetimes, and the assumption of what roles we each will play, what drama we may be embroiled with, and all is based on the cause and effect mechanics of the simulated creations. Duane has cited the case where he knew a couple, and the man was very aggressively inclined toward the woman, and as it transpired, they had been partners in the previous lifetime. Their genders the opposite, and it had been the individual, who was the woman now in this lifetime, who had been the man in the lifetime prior to it, and had killed his partner. The emotional attachment had their karma embroiled, and back into the mix they would be again, with the man having what was construed as an illogical rage directed at his partner. Illogical from a surface one-dimensional perspective at any rate, but making sense when a greater view was afforded. And very possibly you could have situations where attachments through emotion could have individuals entwined for thousands of lifetimes, and not necessarily what would be a simulated sensation, love, idea, emotion either. It could as readily be a created sensation of hate. When we come into this life, there also is agreement between the mother and the individual assuming the role as her child, as again, everything can only be in cause and effect creation, according to agreement and decision. What tends to happen, of course, is that rather than just assuming the positions people do, they become emotionally attached to the body forms and the roles they assume, and their roles in relation to others. To look at the animals would demonstrate this beingness state of awareness, in that, yes, we take on these positions and are inserted into whatever family units we are, but the animals are not attached to their body types or their positions, and don't consider and cling on to the ideas of these parent and offspring relationships. Everything in creation are ideas, including the body forms and the positions, the roles we assume, and the thoughts and emotions we apply to our various relationships. And all of these ideas create effects we must experience if we cling to them, if we agree with them, if we are emotionally attached to them. As such, even when individuals pass over, they will very likely feature on the real side, for in reality, nothing is separate from anything else. We all are this awareness, and all in the same life. In the isness, that is everything, in every new nowness moment, everything is there, and it is only from the perspective of the literal created personal self that there seems to be separation, distance, and individuals entering and leaving our experience. The personal self can only see pieces, the pieces it effects into its experience through the created consciousness construction and the decisions it makes in creation that presents as sequences of events and people that seem to come and go. When I first began with the new presentation, I had a real side experience with this same grandmother, and she would try to warn me off about it, referring to it as a cult, etc., which is, of course, a fairly standard reaction to what is so real to be beyond the recognitional grasp of most, as, of course, the new presentation references the ears, and the personal self has rather the difficulty getting to grips with the reality of something that is everything, and that they in fact are, and that is beyond what they have known and confined themselves to, restricted to a created, reflected simulator of this true reality that they have been. So the tendency to attach created idea labels to that which they don't recognize becomes a standard response. In this more recent experience on the real side, it seems my grandmother rather has had a complete 180 in regards to her self-decided, convinced position. She was speaking to me at great lengths of how she had been watching over the family from the real side. A position in the astral, I would assume, and naturally would have observed not only our continued singing of the NUUU song, my father and I, my father being her son, but that she had seen the results also. For what we decide on the physical, through the personal self, affects all aspects of our 5 vehicles, including the astral, where her awareness was positioned, and she had evidently seen the benefit of our decided process of becoming more aware and singing the NUUU song. As such, she would go on to inform me that she, too, was singing the NUUU song, and was finding it effective. This would indeed verify that even as we transition, we can still continue on with our awareness process, or indeed, as in her case, make a start with it. although the density of the physical level and the familiarity with its idea construction does afford the best position in regards to what the personal self can relate to, and therefore make comparison from, in which to recognize and see and move into unknown expressions of being. A continued process of positioning anew, by comparison to what we already do know and relate to, then from our new established position we can relate to that, and use that as comparison again to move ever onwards into the unknown of the endlessness of the is. So usually, if an individual hasn't decided to begin the journey of is recognition, hasn't been prepared therefore for transition, hasn't been shown the areas of creation beyond the physical, then when they pass over to the astral, which is where most will go, due to recognitional inadequacy, they won't know where they are, have nothing to relate to, rather float about confused for a time, get bored, and want to return to that which they are familiar with, a physical body, on another rock world, on the physical level. So yes, we can continue our process of awareness wherever we happen to be in creation, but beginning after transition from the physical is less likely and less typical, but not impossible, as my grandmother would approve, although she was clinging onto the idea creation that was her former identity as the mother of Peter and my grandmother. But regardless, she was singing the NUUU song and taking the risk to see more. Also, we have a pet dog called Bruno, and she would speak of how she was in constant communication with him. Seems then she was engaging him being to being, beyond the limited personal self arena, as of course the personal self of a dog would be rather rudimentary. And yet they are real awareness beings also, they just happen to be in animal forms, according to their own process. For as we know, we can engage any embodied awareness in this being-to-being manner. Animals would have a pure and direct connection with their real awareness, as they had not yet immersed themselves in illusory bubbles of personal self-literal ideas. They had not reached a form yet where they would begin free will deciding through the personal self. So maybe I will encounter my grandmother again, as her inclination to become more aware places her in a reality that aligns with my own, rather than a personal self-immersed position that would be at odds with what I'm deciding, as individuals deciding very differently will have experiences that simply cannot come into a conjunction except through imposition and lingering emotional attachment. This planet Earth needs a lot of help from all of us right now. Dean Val of NUUU, Nations United, UNUversal, UNUversity, is contacting people around this world every day to share the importance of the all-natural environment supporting all of us. Dean Val and Duane Lee Heppner.org 501c3 have created CAN, Community Action Network, to help all communities become aware of how to be self-sufficient with permaculture and food and rainforests. We are always looking for real people to step up who want to learn what life on this earth is all about. We will be leasing large portions of land to create something wonderful for all communities everywhere. Contact Val Vittles on Skype and Facebook, and through the phone number and the website DuaneTheGreatWriter.net provided in the links, to get involved with what we all can do now. The NUUU, Nations United UNUversal UNUversity, is dedicated to supporting and providing a real purpose and real awareness with the all-natural environment supporting all of us. First comes this earth with food and rainforests, and to protect what is still here. For those who have the awareness to see what is actually taking place here with all the natural devastation, which is also purposely planned by WorldKontrollers, you now have a real opportunity to step up and do something with those who also care about your planet Earth. Duane Lee Heppner has created the NUUU, Nations United UNUversal UNUversity, which completely entails the all-natural environment everywhere, and a real education that has real value, and that far surpasses any commonly created indoctrinating educational system that does not focus on what sustains all of us naturally. Real survival makes sense with everything here that is self-sustaining.